Thank you everyone for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have people from across the globe, at least from our last presentations, that's what we found. So
I love it. We're so excited. Just let us know and we'll jump into our next slide. This is kind of our placeholders, people come trickling in.
okay, sure.
We wish we had some elevator music for y'all.
I
We could put
know.
on some some vibe music for you.
Okay, I think we have a good number now, about half of the number that we have signed up so far. So feel free to take it away, ladies.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon. I know we're all tuning in from different locations, wherever you're calling in from. We're really excited to get started. Welcome to Retail Ready Crafting Connections and Igniting Growth. And my name is Zanana. I also go by Zoe for short.
I'm Ushrami Sade. I go by Remy, Sade, lots of different nicknames for a very long name.
And we are the co-founders of XNL Consulting, and we're really excited to be here today with you. So our goal for this workshop is to inform you all on how you can build loyalty and community amongst your customer base in order to prepare you to enter into mass retail.
All right. So as mentioned, we're XNO Consulting. We have about 20 plus years of collective industry experience. I know we look very young, but we've been working in different industries for quite some time now. My background is in buying. So I used to be a buyer for Macy's as well as social commerce. I spent some time at Meta, and Zanana was like our finance girl. She was at Morgan Stanley for quite some time and recently finished up her MBA at Harvard Business School. And so we're really here to share a lot about our experience in the workforce, but also our work with brands that we help every day. As a consulting agency, we help with growth and brand strategy with brands across the fashion, beauty, and wellness industries. So we're here to share a lot of the things that we've learned along our journey.
Okay, so our workshop structure. This is our agenda for today, but before we jump into that, we're going to just ask that, and we know it can be hard on Zoom, but we're gonna like ask some little prompt questions. We really want this to be interactive. And so we'll ask a question and you can put your response in the chat just so we get to know each other a little bit better and get to know the knowledge in the room. But we are going to start off with, do you really know your customer? Then we'll move into building loyalty and community. Then after that, we will follow up with, so you think you're ready for retail? We'll go into Retail 101, the mindset of a buyer. As Sade mentioned, she was a buyer, so you'll get to pick her brain. And then also ensuring success in retail. And then we'll save the last 10 minutes for Q&A. So any questions you have, please feel free to drop them in the chat throughout if they come up, and we will try to address all of them. Okay, so welcome to Do You Really Know Your Customer? And so igniting growth starts with knowing your people. You may be thinking, why is this important for retail? Well, retailers are looking to see your traction and how you've been performing in the industry. They want to know that you have customers that will support you and that you have the customers they're trying to attract. So it sounds kind of like a basic question, but we would say that 90% of the brands that we've worked with are selling to customers that they did not originally seek to target. And when that happens, you really need to get to know these new customers that you are attracting that you didn't even know you would get. So, knowing your customer will impact your marketing, your product mix, and ultimately determine how successful you will be in a retail environment. So, it is extremely important. All right, and as promised, here's our first interaction point. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you know your customer? Just drop a number in the chat. And we'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Okay, we see a 6.5, 7, 6. Okay.
These are good. These are
yeah. Anyone else want to throw some numbers in?
It looks like we're averaging out around a 6.
Yeah, around a 6. Yeah.
Solid.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So you're on it. So as we go into this information, we'll see what you have done to get to know them. All right. So the first question you have as a brand is, what are you solving? Everything you purchase in your life is solving a need and reflecting your values. So even that cute dress you saw on Instagram that you got, or a really nice hat, it's something that you're trying to portray to the world and it's filling a need for you. So you really want to be clear on what your unique offering is to your customer and be very strategic on how you communicate this offering. And in order to do that, you really need to know who they are. So this dives into segmentation, and knowing your customer really starts here. Knowing who your customer base is will help influence the retail partners that you're seeking out that best match your brand identity. So if you're a premium brand and you know your customers are really used to having a premium experience, you probably won't want to go into a mass retailer that is a little bit more budget conscious or running a lot of sales. So something to keep in mind here is that all money is not good money, and people can get carried away with the retail opportunity that's not actually the right fit for their customer base, which will ultimately mean that they may not be as successful in that store. And so with segmentation, you really want to know this key information. So we've outlined demographics, psychological things, as well as some other information that you may get. And so demographics, pretty basic. You want to know their gender, age, marital status, etc. So you know who you're targeting and who actually will buy your product. Psychological, you really want to know what your customer is into. Like you should know what your customer eats for breakfast every day. You should know what they're doing in their free time, where they're going, because although this might not seem that it coincides with selling clothing or jewelry or whatever it is you're selling, but knowing your customer ultimately will determine how you communicate and get your brand across. Some other fun information that we have often gotten from talking to doing customer interviews is asking questions like, what's your favorite social network? Because you might be really active on Instagram, but your customer base might really care about TikTok and might be very turned off by Instagram. You also want to know what are their favorite retail stores, how they choose a brand, what their pain points are with shopping, and how they decide to spend their money. You really want to get to know everything about them and really view them as not people you're just selling to, but actually people that you want to get to know, because that's ultimately they're determining how successful your brand is. And so, how do I get this information? And Rhonda, I see that you threw that question in the chat. So, that is a perfect segue and transition. So, you can find a lot of creative ways to talk to your customer. It doesn't need to be straight one on one interviews, but I will say that it is very surprising the amount of information you can get from someone just by asking them. So we have outlined 5 different ways here. 1, interviews. 2, focus groups. 3, surveys. 4, social media. And 5, events. Starting with interviews, this is a typical one-on-one. Usually a good way to do this is to have someone that's not you, because you don't want your customers to feel as though they have to give you the right answer. So you get someone to do it for you. You promise them a discount code normally, or a gift card and some type of incentive. And you just set aside 20 minutes to talk to them and ask them a bunch of the questions that we outlined above. And you promise them that obviously their information is going to be confidential. We have done things where asking people questions like, what did you want to be when you grew up? And you would think that that has nothing to do with me selling them a cute outfit, but it has everything to do with how they saw themselves and what they aspire to be. And that's just really cool information for how you get to communicate to them. Next is focus groups. So that's typically something that you would see in the consumer packaged goods space, but it's something that you can also organize for your business, where you get a group of your top customers, so the people who have spent the most money with your brand. You get them all together, you offer food, you make it really cool. Once again, give them an incentive for participating, and you just talk to them on what you're trying to do with the brand and get to know them. Next, surveys. This can be a bit tricky to get engagement. You're going to guess it, like, once again, incentivize them. So you can send out a survey, and you can do this either just through any Qualtrics surveys or anything just online, any easy survey makers. Social media is a great way also to conduct mini surveys. So we have it outlined here, but you can do things like put poll questions in your stories, or if you're giving a sneak peek at different styles that you want to try out, you can also ask your customers what their opinion is on those things, and just ask them different questions about themselves. And lastly, events. So something that has happened post the COVID-19 era is that people really are craving in-person events. When you host these events, you can find ways to talk to them in person, have your staff talk to them, and really just try to get to know who's in the room and what made them show up for you. Okay, now we are into building loyalty in community. So ensuring that you can succeed in a retail environment, as we mentioned before, is having very strong traction. And you really want everyone that's in your community to feel loyal to you. You want them to feel like no matter which store you go into, they love your stuff so much that they're going to come and they're going to find you and purchase it. So this is our next interaction point. If you can just put a brand name in the chat that you think is good at building community. It doesn't have to be in any specific industry, just any brand that you like that you think has done a really good job of building community and loyalty.
Don't be shy.
Topicals.
Oh, that was a big one for us.
Nike.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. Topicals is really doing a great job. I know you all saw Detti December and how they flew out all of these influencers, and just everything they do really speaks to who. Oh, I see another Topicals. Yes. They're killing it. They're doing really great.
Shout out to Olamide. They're
Skims.
Oh,
Skims
yes.
Skims is a really good one.
We just did a little study on them. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So this number is kind of scary. Only 8% of global customers are loyal to brands. And this is a big decrease from what it used to be. So back in the day, you had 20% of your customers that were driving 80% of your sales. That is not the case. People are very quick to hop to the next thing. Now, what makes that good is that as a new brand, or as you're trying to attract new customers, you can trust that as long as you're communicating clearly, you have a clear brand mission, you're offering things that people want, you can get new people in the door. But what really ultimately drives success is keeping those customers. You don't want to just keep on chasing new people. You want to make sure that you are consistently focused on the people that are already your customers. The easiest person to sell to is the person you already sold to. And that's something to really keep in mind. So according to a bunch of different surveys, the top reasons for trying new brands included value for money, or saying price and promotion drives their choice. So unfortunately, sometimes it is a race to the bottom for sales. People are really holding out, just given the economic climate that we're in. But it's really important to make sure that you get around that by showing them why they need to stay loyal to you and why you are really important to them as a brand. Here we have some more stats on loyalty in the digital age. So consumers are more likely to be loyal to brands who provide personalized and individualized customer experience. So you can see over here that 86% of customers are willing to pay more for a great customer experience. 63% believes companies need to get better at listening to feedback. Going back to the point that I raised earlier, you need to talk to your customers. And 53% expect a brand to know their buying habits and preferences and be able to anticipate their needs. Now that is a little creepy. We thought that was a little scary, but that is what people are looking for. They want to feel like you're talking directly to them, and you have to know them in order to talk directly to them. And just something to keep in mind is that brand loyalty grows revenues 2.5 times faster than brands that don't have loyalty. So you want your revenue to continue to grow, particularly as you're trying to enter retail. And so you want to make sure that you have loyal customers. The tenets of loyalty include: one, perceived brand value. So do your products or services provide competitive value in your market? Two, perceived brand quality. Are your products and services of a better quality than the next best alternative. And 3, perceived brand trust. So can customers feel like they can put their faith in your products and the services will be justified for the price that they're paying? Okay, this brings us to our loyalty and community. So customer loyalty is key to succeeding in any environment. And community is customers just don't want to feel sold to. They want to feel a sense of connection and that they're part of something bigger. This is something that we are all super annoyed by all of the Instagram ads. It feels constant, it's intrusive, it's annoying. But when you see something like topicals that's building community, or Nike or Skims, you don't get as annoyed, right? Because you're like, oh, this is cool, and they know who they're talking to. So we have outlined 5 different ways to cultivate connection. So customers who feel emotionally connected to a brand have a 306% higher lifetime value than those who don't. So that means they're spending a lot more money. So first, interactions. You want to create opportunities for customers to interact with each other in real life or online. So once again, going back to the example to provided of hosting events. Second, you want to respond promptly to feedback on your product. So anyone that leaves a negative review, even a positive review, you want to make sure that you're being responsive. I have left reviews and have been shocked to get phone calls from people immediately being like, oh, you've been a great customer, and we really just want to make sure you're happy. And that made a difference, and that made me feel like, okay, like you care about me, and I'm going to continue to support you because it meant that much to you to call me. So next is highlight. So you want to be clear on your brand values and find ways to highlight your customers. So this is whether, posting UGC, user generated content. If a customer has just gotten a promotion or something just really that makes the community feel small and intimate, posting them on your Instagram. Ideally, they'll be wearing your product or rocking something from your brand, but just finding a way to really highlight them. Next is rewards. So finding ways to offer rewards to members of your community. And with that, you just want to basically make sure that you are offering things that are very exclusive, like a sneak peek on a collection or exclusive drops. And lastly, listen to what your customers are saying about the brand. Going into retail is hard, and you need to show results in order to stand out on the shelves. And your customers' connection to your brand will ultimately determine how successful you are. And so now I'm going to kick it over to Sade, who is going to get into So You Think You're Ready for Retail.
All right. Thank you, Zanana. That was great. I'm really excited to talk to you all about the retail space. But first up, for our next kind of interaction bit, can I get a thumbs up or a comment if you're interested into going into mass retail? You can write retail ready, I'm ready, whatever that may be. You can put reactions if that's enabled on the Zoom. And again, don't be shy. I know some of you in here, and I know some of you are in retail, so getting there. Okay. Love it. Okay, well, we're gonna jump in. I'm hoping that some of this is something you all are interested in, and also we're gonna go very one-on-one. So also building wholesale. Okay, cool. Love it. If some of this feels like work with us through this, and if some of this feels like I have no idea what you're talking about, please put any comments into the chat. So first things first, when going into retail is making sure that you have the fulfillment capabilities. So just laying out fulfillment must have. First things first is scaling. So you want to prepare to scale your fulfillment capabilities beyond your current D2C demand. Be prepared for fulfillment based on a potential door count. So door count is essentially the amount of stores that the retailer that you're going into has. Knowing how many stores your retailer has really helps you gauge your capabilities. You won't necessarily always go into all doors immediately. You usually will get rolled out, but let's say you're starting in 20 or 50. You want to make sure that you have the fulfillment capabilities to meet those orders and meet that demand, and that you can scale and grow that. Ultimately, if they want to take you to their maximum door count, some retailers in North America have 500 plus stores, that you're going to be able to meet that demand. And if you are fulfilling orders on your own at home, start looking into exploring fulfillment centers. I can mostly speak to North America. There are a lot of like smaller fulfillment centers that you can work with, and they'll hold your goods and help you with that whole process. Next up is ensuring that you have UPCs. So UPCs are universal product codes on all of your products. There's that little barcode that you will tend to see on tags or boxes. Um, you're losing some of the words.
Can everyone hear us okay? Is anyone else having trouble hearing?
I think I can hear most of it. I know my internet, because I'm not from outside the US, is a little bit unstable, but I can hear most of what you're saying. If
Okay.
anybody else has problems, just let us know.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so those are UPCs. These are created through, oh, okay, the voice is a little bit far. Okay, I'll get a little bit closer to the computer. These can be created, again, specifically in North America through a program called GS1, and we'll talk kind of a little bit more through the UPC process in the next slide. And then next up, okay, thanks for the feedback, is EDI. So this is electronic data interchange, making sure that you're EDI capable. Again, speaking specifically to North America, this is huge in mass retailers. This is essentially used for transferring business documents. You'll see that a lot of mass retailers require this before you can even go into stores. So definitely be mindful of that and get prepared. So just a quick understanding of UPCs, you'll see here that there are 81 barcodes that can be generated from 3 different sizes, 3 different colors, 3 styles, and 3 packages. So the 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, that's how you get to 81 barcodes. So just being mindful of how much product you have and how many UPCs you're going to need to generate. This is something that you definitely want to get ready prior. A retailer is expecting you to have a lot of these things before you even start to have some of the conversations with buyers. And there are some that will kind of walk you through the process, but if you stay ready, then you don't have to get ready. So kind of get you prepared ahead of time. Next up is pricing for profit. So you want to be really clear on the cost to create your products. And this might sound like, of course, I know the cost of it, but this is inclusive of materials, your production, your labor, packaging, and fulfillment. So shipping all those products over to your retailer, making sure again that all your boxes or tags have the UPCs, that you are ready to be on shelves. It looks a lot different than when you're directly shipping to a customer. So get all those costs down to the penny written out so that you can understand how you want to price your product. We have unfortunately seen brands who were losing profit off of product because they didn't factor in packaging and fulfillment when they were working on their wholesale pricing. So something that we just want to highlight right out the gate. Next, I'd say assess the market and how your competitors are priced. So if you know that you want to go into Bloomingdale's and you are a handbag brand, look at some of the other handbag brands that they're carrying, how similar they are to you, how they're priced, and you want to competitively price that you're not so high that you're kind of allowing a customer to go to another brand because they're being price conscious, but that you're also not lowballing yourself. Mm-hmm. That also goes into understanding the retailer's pricing strategies. So, are you open to a retailer that does heavy sales and promotions and often marks down product because you want to factor that into your wholesale pricing? Or are you going into something that's a little more luxury and you'll be able to maintain some of those margins? And that leads me to creating a margin goal. So you want to create a goal that ensures that you're profitable at wholesale pricing and competitive at retail pricing for a full quarter or a season. So sales may fluctuate throughout months, and you want to make sure that at the end of all that, if you've been in a retailer that's running 25 to 30% off for different holidays throughout a quarter, that at the end of the quarter, you're still happy with the margins. And we typically say like 50 to 60% margin is where you want to go. Varies by industry. And then you're going to create your line sheet. So once you determine your costs, your wholesale, then you're going to have your MSRP, which is a manufacturer's suggested retail price, and you'll create your line sheet. We have a little example to the left of the screen. It is a suggested retail price. It's typically the price that the retailer should honor, but once they own the goods, they are legally allowed, again, in North America, to run sales and run markdowns. All right, so now we're going to go more into like a retail 101, getting into the mindset of a buyer, at least the mindset that I was in at the time. Again, for just some interaction and just to gauge where everyone's at, have any of you had introductions to buyers? You can thumbs up, you can put a dollar sign in the chat, anything that you want to kind of show us that you may have spoken to someone. And this could be someone at a mass retailer. This can be like a smaller boutique, but just any interaction dealing with a buying team. And again, don't be shy. Okay, thumbs up. Okay, and I know some of you had said that you're getting there, so maybe you haven't had some of these conversations. So again, we're going to kind of give you some of the insights. So what are buyers looking for? First and foremost, a strong brand identity. So if you are approached by a buyer or you're doing an outreach and you get an opportunity to pitch, you want to have a really strong pitch deck that highlights your brand identity and why you're the right product fit for that retailer's audience and what makes you unique. So really, this is kind of tailored to the retailer that you're speaking to, depending on where you're going. If you're maybe only talking to an e-tailer, so it's e-commerce only, maybe you want to speak to your fast shipping capabilities. If maybe you're selling directly, like you're fulfilling the orders directly. Or again, if you are a larger retailer that you're speaking to that might be very sales driven, that you're open to sales and you've seen a lot of positive responses to when you ran sales. They want to understand that you're going to be able to fly off those shelves if they put an investment into you. And that kind of goes into the sales strategy. So having a comprehensive and concise sales strategy that speaks to your past successes. So some of your wins from your D2C business, your audience, and that goes back to the importance of cultivating that community and loyalty. And what are your sales goals and how do you intend to get there? You should be confident and, go in there like it's a Shark Tank episode and consider the type of retailers that you are pitching to so that you can kind of tailor your storyline. Maybe they're really big on social media and you have a strong social following, or you have really cool marketing strategies via your SMS or email newsletters, but you want to go in there kind of showing that you have receipts that you can drive the sales. And last but not least, the lingo. So knowing the language. Retailers, for some reason, buyers speak in code and use so many acronyms. I'm sure you've heard some of them out there, but really start to speak the language and know the terminology used by buyers and merchandise planners to convey your knowledge of the industry and also just know what's going on. We created a little glossary. So if you're interested, just shoot us an email. Our email will be available at the end of the presentation and we can share that with you. And it's just some of the common terms that you might run up against as you start having conversations with buyers. All right, so you have prepared, you've got your fulfillment together, you've got your pricing, you've worked through your pitch deck and all the things, but now how do you ensure success in retail? If I could scream this from the mountaintops, I would. Everything is negotiable. So I know oftentimes it feels like you're so honored to be able to have some of these meetings, or, you've got a lucky break to be able to talk to a buyer and now they want to bring you on and bring you into their stores. But ultimately, it is business and everything is negotiable. So you should not leave anything on the table because you want to make sure that you're going to be successful. We've often seen that sometimes retail can kind of like eat people up and unfortunately spit them out if they're not going into it negotiating and being really business oriented in how they're having these conversations. So first things first is payment terms. Unfortunately, often in the retail space, you are paid on net terms. So that means after you delivered the goods, you can be paid anytime between 30 days, 60 days, to even 90 days after. And you are expected to have the funds to produce those goods in advance. I encourage the brands that we work with to negotiate a deposit if that's something that's possible. You can ask the question, they can only tell you no. But you really want to go in and negotiate your payment terms and understand what your capabilities are. If you sign up for a net 90 agreement, knowing that that's not something that you can financially support, I would either try to negotiate it down or you will maybe have to decline because it doesn't necessarily make sense to go into that space and not even be able to fulfill the orders because you just don't have the funding. Sales and markdown agreements. So again, a lot of mass retailers, particularly in the US, can be very sales heavy. So they want to run 25% off for President's Day or 30% off for Labor Day. We've got a lot of holidays here. And you want to be mindful of that in your pricing strategy and know if you want to go into a retailer that's very sales driven. And then with markdown agreements, so that's when your product is gone from your MSRP, your original price, and cut down to a lower price that it permanently stays at. That is a markdown opposed to a sale. There's something called MDA or markdown allowances. And in some cases, the retailer can get money back from you from having to put your product to a markdown or permanently on sale. So you want to be mindful of that, have those conversations in advance, understand how often they do markdowns. For example, coming from Macy's, we would do up to 3 rounds of markdowns. So knowing that your product could just be getting cut and cut and cut by 20 to 30% every time. And you want to bake in for that and know if there's expectations of having to pay for that. Then there's marketing support and co-op, something marketing co-op. It's kind of like cooperative funds. Sometimes a retailer might take a percentage of your revenue to support marketing, whether that's in email marketing, site merchandising, social media, whatever you agree upon. You want to understand what the marketing support will look like and have those conversations. I highly encourage brands to come to their buyers with ideas and make it collaborative. You should continue to have conversations with your buyers and understand, if I'm paying for this, where am I going to be featured? This is a scary one. Return to vendor. So RTVs, if your product doesn't sell, they can send it back if that is in your agreement. And no one wants old goods, especially in the fashion industry where you're thinking about seasonality and you're constantly producing new product. You often don't want to take those goods back. And so you want to understand if your agreement with your buying team includes an RTV. And if it does, have a game plan for how you're going to get rid of that inventory. Are you going to run a sale on your own D2C? Are you going to try to give it to another retailer? Just have a plan in place so that you're not surprised if you get hit with new product and a fee for having to return it. And lastly, reporting and insights. This was also something that was very jarring to us when we started consulting, that so many of our brands were in retailers and they weren't getting any reporting. They had no idea how their business was performing. They weren't understanding the sell-throughs that they were seeing every week. So how fast the product, the inventory was turning over. And that's something you should definitely negotiate with your buyers and understand what reporting that they're going to provide and what insights they're going to provide for you. Again, as a buyer, I had very close relationships with my vendors. I had weekly meetings with them, updating them on how things were going and how we could be successful. And you can equally go to them with ideas. Is something working really well in your D2C that's not working for them? How do you kind of rectify that? Or maybe you need to swap out an item. Maybe it's better for you to have D2C versus them to have in stores. So really being mindful, staying on top of your reporting and getting those insights. And again, I know that you don't know what you don't know, but definitely go in and just get an understanding of like what can be provided for you.
All right, you made it to the end. So here are the key takeaways from our presentation. 1, know your customer. very important to know who they are in order to sell to them and be successful. Two, establish loyalty and community. You don't want to make them feel sold to.
And then be prepared with your fulfillment requirements. So be able to beef up and scale for when, hopefully those big orders come in, you can meet that demand. Price for profitability. So again, down to the penny, know what everything costs and make sure that you are making a profit. And you get what you negotiate. So go in, feel comfortable, have the conversation, and make sure that you feel comfortable with any business agreements that you're making.
And that wraps it up. Thank you so much for listening. So you can feel free to send in any questions right now on the chat. We'll be here for the next 10 minutes or so, roughly. And we will be happy to answer anything. And then once again, to the glossary, the retailer cheat sheet, so you can learn the lingo, you can email us at info@xnoconsulting.com and we will send that over to you. Okay.
All right.
All right.
First
question
question
about the decks. How important is it to have one when pitching oneself in the company? And if you're not good at creating those things, do you offer consulting services to build the deck? So yes, we do offer consulting services to build a deck. It is important to have one that looks good. This is your brand, right? So if you have the most beautiful items, you have the coolest stuff, but then your deck is looking like Times New Roman font and it's like crooked and things don't look good, this is this is stressful, right? Like, you thinking about that, it's stressful. And so you want to make sure that it looks really good and it's portraying your brand. And as a consulting company, we do offer pitch deck services. So we have helped several brands to get their pitch decks together and make sure that they are presenting themselves in a way that's conveying their brand values.
That was a great question.
Great question. Thank you so much, Carl.
Any other questions? And again, feel free to email us.
Okay. Ooh. How do buyers typically find brands? All right.
This is a great question. There's a lot of different avenues. When I was in the buying space, this is about 5 years ago, it feels like the dinosaur ages. We often would do trade shows. I don't know how common trade shows are anymore. I know some of my colleagues would still go to trade shows, but there are different trade shows, specifically all over the US. There are really big ones in Vegas. One was called Magic. There's Coterie, which I think might be in Vegas, and New York. I would kind of just start Googling trade shows within your specific industry, because there are different trade shows for different categories. So I know in jewelry, a big one is JCK. Like I mentioned, Coterie and Magic are really big in fashion. There are trade shows for home. There are trade shows for just about everything. Oh, our Instagram. Okay. You want to put it in the chat?
Drop it in the chat.
Any other question? Oh, and in addition to trade shows, there are some like programs that you can sign up for. I know some of you might be familiar with like the folklore. There's another company, I think Jor does like references for brands. You can kind of sign up for different programs. Usually these will have like fees associated, but they'll do like buyer intros. Ooh, thank you for sending some of these.
And there's also some really cool ones in the chat.
Yeah. And then we were always kind of scoping out new brands that we might have been seeing on social media. At Macy's, we had New Order. At Macy's, we had a fashion office. And so they were typically scoping out trends all over the world and kind of like the new hot brands, not necessarily always needing to come from a big following, but just like starting to build that buzz. So again, that's why having strong community is so important, because you get that loyalty and people are starting to talk about you and they're like, who is that? We want to keep our eyes to the streets. Especially when I was buying more contemporary, we kind of needed to stay up on trends nonstop. And so I was always kind of scoping out social media articles and seeing who was the cool new kids on the block. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamelia. Yes, like do all your research on all the things that we've mentioned. Julia put in the chat she's gonna research EDI. So yes,
Yeah.
big thing to know. But we want to make sure that we get everyone out of here on time. If you have another session that you're running to, we want to give you some time to take a little break. So that concludes our session. Once again, feel free to email
This
us
is
at
actually the last session.
consulting. But sorry.
Oh, I was saying this was actually the last session, so
Oh, the last
we're
one.
okay.
Cool. So yeah, if anyone has any additional questions, you can feel free to email them to us and we're happy to answer. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much. This was great. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We're going to make the video available to you all so that you can continue to watch and rewatch it and hopefully absorb even more information after watching it multiple times. So thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.